Just when Noah believes every secret has finally been uncovered, workers restoring the old school bus discover a welded steel tube hidden inside the roof. Sealed inside is one final letter from Harold Mitchell that reads, "If you're reading this, then you expose the truth, but there's one innocent person they never stopped hunting." What? Noah reads next changes everything he thought the story was about. Before we begin today's incredible story, make sure to join our YouTube family by hitting the subscribe button. If you enjoy emotional stories filled with mystery, hidden secrets, shocking twists, and inspiring endings, don't forget to like this video. And before we dive in, tell us in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is in your country. We love hearing from viewers all around the world. Now imagine being just 18 years old, falsely accused of a crime you didn't commit, with everyone turning against you overnight. Forced to survive inside an abandoned school bus through the freezing winter, one hidden compartment behind the last seat would uncover a secret powerful enough to expose the truth and change his life forever. Now let's get into the story. Noah Carter stood silently outside the small hardware store where he had worked for nearly 3 years. The winter wind blew through the empty parking lot, but he barely noticed the cold. His hands were shaking. Not because of the temperature, because only 20 minutes earlier, everything he had built had fallen apart. At 18 years old, Noah had always believed that hard work spoke louder than words. He arrived early every morning. He stayed late whenever someone needed help. He swept floors no one asked him to clean. He carried heavy boxes without complaining. People often told him he had an old soul. His biggest dream wasn't becoming rich. He simply wanted to earn enough money to attend trade school and someday open his own repair shop. Life wasn't perfect, but it was honest. Then one Friday afternoon, the store owner rushed into the office looking terrified. $5,000 had disappeared from the safe. Everyone inside the building was questioned. The security cameras had mysteriously stopped recording for nearly 40 minutes. Nobody understood how. Police officers arrived quickly. They searched lockers. When they opened Noah's, the missing money was sitting inside. Every person in the room turned toward him. Noah stared at the cash. His face turned pale. "I've never seen that before." Nobody believed him. His manager folded his arms. "I'm disappointed." Another employee quietly shook his head. "I thought you were better than this." Noah tried explaining. "I didn't take it. I don't know how it got there. I swear." The police officer looked at him with tired eyes. "Then explain why the money was inside your locker." Noah couldn't, because he genuinely had no idea. His explanation sounded weak even to himself. Within minutes, he lost everything. The owner fired him immediately. Several co-workers refused to even look at him. As he walked outside carrying his backpack, whispers followed him through the parking lot. "I always knew something seemed strange. You can never trust people completely." What a shame. Noah kept walking. He didn't argue anymore. He knew the truth. But truth meant very little once everyone had already decided you were guilty. By evening, the rumors had spread across town. Neighbors whispered as he passed. People who had known him for years suddenly looked away. His phone stopped receiving messages. Friends disappeared one by one. Some even blocked him completely. Nobody asked what had really happened. Nobody wanted to hear his side. The story was already finished in their minds. Noah returned to the tiny apartment he shared with his uncle. His uncle listened quietly while Noah explained everything. When he finished, the older man sighed heavily. "I want to believe you, but this town won't." Those words hurt almost as much as the accusation itself. Late that night, Noah packed everything he owned into one old duffel bag. A few clothes, his father's pocket knife, a notebook filled with repair ideas, one family photograph. Less than $30 remained in his wallet. Before sunrise, he quietly left town. No destination, no plan, only one promise. One day, he would prove he was innocent. He walked for hours along old country roads. Cars passed without stopping. Snow covered the fields. By late afternoon, his legs ached. The temperature dropped quickly. Then he noticed an abandoned scrapyard hidden beyond a row of pine trees. Old tractors, rusted trucks, broken farm equipment. Everything had been left behind years earlier. As Noah wandered through the rows of forgotten machines, something bright yellow caught his attention. An old school bus. Its paint had faded badly. Several windows were broken. Flat tires had nearly sunk into the frozen ground. Still, the body remained mostly intact. He slowly climbed inside. Dust covered every seat. Spiderwebs filled the corners. Yet surprisingly, the roof didn't leak. Noah looked around. It'll do. For the next several days, he transformed the forgotten bus into a home. He cleaned every seat, covered broken windows with heavy plastic, collected discarded wood to build a small shelf, used old blankets found inside another abandoned camper to stay warm. It wasn't comfortable, but it was shelter. Every morning he searched nearby towns for temporary work, loading trucks, repairing fences, cleaning construction sites, anything honest. Whenever employers asked about his previous job, he simply said, "It didn't work out." He hated hiding the truth, but saying he had been accused of theft usually ended the conversation. Weeks passed. Winter became harsher. Some nights temperatures dropped below freezing. Noah often sat near a small camping stove reading repair manuals borrowed from the local library. He refused to waste time feeling sorry for himself. He believed one thing. Someday someone would discover the real thief. Until then, he would survive. One snowy evening, strong winds shook the old bus. One loose seat near the back began rattling loudly. Noah grabbed his wrench. If I'm sleeping here, I might as well fix it. He removed several rusty bolts. Most came loose easily, except the final seat. No matter how hard he pulled, it refused to move. He frowned. That's strange. The mounting brackets looked different from every other seat, almost newer. He crouched lower. Using his flashlight, he noticed fresh weld marks hidden beneath years of rust. Someone had intentionally secured this seat far more tightly than the others. Curiosity replaced exhaustion. He pushed harder. The entire bench suddenly shifted sideways. Instead of exposing the floor, it revealed a hidden steel compartment built directly into the frame of the bus. Noah's heartbeat quickened. Inside rested a weatherproof metal box covered in dust. Across its scratched lid, someone had carved 7 chilling words. If you're innocent, this belongs to you. Noah stared at the metal box for what felt like an eternity. The words carved into its lid refused to leave his mind. If you're innocent, this belongs to you. His heartbeat echoed through the silent school bus. Who could have written that? And more importantly, how could anyone have known he would end up here? He carefully lifted the box from the hidden compartment. It was surprisingly heavy. Years of dust covered its surface. But the metal itself remained in excellent condition. Someone had wanted whatever was inside to survive. The box wasn't locked, only sealed with 2 rusted metal latches. Noah hesitated. Every instinct told him opening it would change something. Taking a deep breath, he released the first latch. Then the second. The lid creaked open. Inside lay several carefully wrapped bundles protected by waterproof cloth. The first bundle contained dozens of handwritten journals. The second held photographs. The third contained cassette tapes labeled with dates, stretching back more than 30 years. Resting on top was a sealed envelope. Across the front, someone had written, "To the first honest person who finds this." Noah slowly unfolded the letter. "My name is Harold Mitchell. If you are reading this, then I was probably right. There are still honest people left." Noah frowned. He had never heard the name before. The letter continued. "I drove this school bus for 27 years. I watched children grow into adults. I watched families build lives. And I watched powerful men destroy innocent ones." Noah's eyes narrowed. Harold explained that years earlier he had accidentally witnessed members of a wealthy, local family hiding stolen business records inside the abandoned bus after it had been retired. Afraid for his life, Harold secretly copied everything before hiding the originals beneath the last seat. He had planned to expose the truth, but before he could, he became seriously ill. The final paragraph read, "If someone truly honest finds this one day, finish what I couldn't." Noah immediately opened the second bundle. Inside were photographs showing several men unloading boxes into the school bus late one night. The pictures were old, very old, but one face immediately caught Noah's attention. His breath stopped. The man looked almost identical to Richard Dawson, the current owner of the hardware store where Noah had been accused. Not Richard himself, someone older, probably his father. Another photograph showed several filing boxes being hidden beneath the very seat Noah had just opened. Noah carefully examined every picture. Each one carried handwritten dates. Each matched entries inside Harold's journals. Hours passed. Outside, snow continued falling. Inside the bus, Noah forgot about everything except the documents spread across the floor. Then he reached the cassette tapes. Fortunately, he still owned an old portable cassette player inherited from his father. It barely worked. After replacing the batteries, he inserted the first tape. Static filled the tiny speaker. Then, voices. Harold's voice came first. "If anything happens to me, these recordings must survive." Another voice interrupted. It was angry. "We paid enough. You'll keep your mouth shut." Harold answered calmly. "You framed innocent people before. You'll do it again." The tape suddenly ended. Noah's stomach tightened. He immediately played another recording. This one contained conversations about forged invoices, fake insurance claims, and money being hidden through local businesses. One name appeared repeatedly: Dawson. The same family that still controlled several businesses in town, including the hardware store. Noah slowly leaned back against the bus wall. Could it really be possible? Had corruption existed for decades? Was his accusation simply another piece of something much larger? He continued reading Harold's journals. One entry stopped him completely. Today's victim was an 18-year-old stock boy. They planted missing money in his locker. He cried while police questioned him. They destroyed his future to protect themselves. Noah's hands began shaking. That journal entry had been written nearly 20 years earlier. Exactly the same method. Exactly the same accusation. History had repeated itself. Someone had framed another innocent teenager long before Noah. The realization filled him with equal parts anger and determination. For weeks he had questioned himself. Wondered if maybe he had somehow missed something. Maybe he had been careless. Maybe he deserved what happened. Now he finally understood. He had never been the problem. Someone else had carefully chosen him. Someone who needed a convenient scapegoat. Outside the bus, headlights suddenly appeared between the trees. A pickup truck slowly entered the scrapyard. Noah immediately switched off the lantern. The engine stopped only a short distance away. Two men climbed out. One shined a flashlight directly toward the abandoned school bus. Another quietly said, "I told you someone's been staying here." The first man answered, "Search the bus. They can't leave with what's hidden inside." Noah's pulse raced. Whoever they were, they already knew about Harold's secret. And now they were coming for him. Noah's heart pounded as the flashlight beam swept across the cracked windows of the abandoned school bus. The two men moved closer. Every step echoed through the frozen scrapyard. Noah quickly gathered Harold Mitchell's journals, photographs, cassette tapes, and the metal box, stuffing everything into his duffel bag. He knew one thing. If those men found the evidence, decades of truth would disappear forever. He quietly climbed through the emergency exit at the back of the bus and slipped into the darkness behind, a pile of rusted farm equipment. Seconds later, the bus door creaked open. The men climbed inside. One of them growled, "Someone's been living here." The other noticed the open compartment beneath the last seat. "It's empty." His face turned pale. He found it. The first man slammed his fist against the wall. "Find him." They searched the scrapyard for nearly an hour. But Noah remained hidden beneath an overturned grain trailer, barely daring to breathe. When the men finally drove away, he waited another 30 minutes before stepping out. He didn't return to the bus. Instead, he walked through the snow until sunrise, heading toward the county courthouse in the next town. He remembered one name from Harold's journals: Margaret Ellis, a retired court clerk Harold trusted more than anyone. Finding her wasn't easy. But after asking around, Noah eventually reached a small white house on the edge of town. Margaret opened the door cautiously. Before Noah could explain, she noticed the weatherproof metal box in his hands. Her expression changed instantly. "You found Harold's evidence?" Noah nodded. "So you knew?" Tears filled the elderly woman's eyes. "I prayed someone honest would." She invited him inside. For hours, they reviewed every journal, photograph, cassette recording, and legal document. Margaret confirmed what Noah had begun to suspect. For decades, a powerful group of businessmen had protected each other through fraud, intimidation, and carefully chosen scapegoats. Whenever money disappeared or financial crimes needed someone to blame, They found a young employee with little power and framed them. The evidence Harold collected connected everything, including the recent theft at the hardware store. Margaret immediately contacted investigators, at the state level instead of local. Authorities, fearing local influence might bury the case again. Within days, forensic accountants examined the documents. Audio experts authenticated the cassette recordings. Photographs were verified. Hidden financial records matched Harold's journals perfectly. The investigation moved quickly. Search warrants were issued. The hardware store's office was searched. Hidden accounting files were discovered exactly where Harold's notes predicted. More importantly, modern forensic testing found fingerprints on the money that had been planted inside Noah's locker. None of them belonged to Noah. Instead, they matched Richard Dawson, the same man who had fired him without hesitation. Several weeks later, the truth became impossible to hide. News reporters filled the courthouse steps. The headlines spread across the state. Teen cleared after evidence exposes decades-long fraud scheme. Richard Dawson and several business associates were arrested. Families whose lives had been ruined years earlier finally received justice. One by one, innocent people who had been blamed for crimes they never committed were officially cleared. When Noah returned to his hometown, everything looked the same. Yet everything had changed. The neighbors who once looked away now greeted him with shame in their eyes. Former co-workers apologized. Even the hardware store employees admitted they should have trusted him. Richard Dawson's old office stood empty. The help wanted sign had been removed. Noah accepted every apology politely, but he carried no anger anymore, because anger would never rebuild what had been broken. One afternoon, the town council invited Noah to a public ceremony. The mayor stood before hundreds of residents. "We failed you. We judged before knowing the truth. We cannot erase what happened. But today, we can admit we were wrong." The crowd stood and applauded. Noah stepped to the microphone. He looked across the faces that had once doubted him. "I don't want revenge. I only want one promise. If another young person ever says they're innocent, listen before deciding they're guilty." Silence filled the square. Many people wiped away tears. Months later, the abandoned school bus was carefully restored instead of being scrapped. It became part of a small local museum honoring Harold Mitchell and every innocent person whose lives had been restored because one man chose to protect the truth. Beside the restored last seat stood a simple bronze plaque. It read, "Truth may hide for years, but it only needs one honest person to bring it into the light." Noah eventually opened the repair shop he had always dreamed about. Above the entrance hung a small framed photograph of the old yellow school bus. Whenever customers asked why, he simply smiled. "Because that's where I found more than the truth. I found myself. The place where everyone thought his life had ended had quietly become the place where it truly began."